some questions and some comments, some ideas that we can have some discussion around. So, yeah, so we got a few that have jumped on. Stacy from our organization is here, so that's great. So yeah, we'll kick off here with some introductions, and then if there's a few more people that jump on, and I thought we'll do just kind of quick hit introductions on just who you are, what utility you're with, and maybe just your role title, and then we'll start moving on from there. So so I'm Dan Ott with KC Water, and I help facilitate this CIP planning and delivery improvement team for WISE. And I've got a couple slides to kind of help get us started and reminded of like what WISE is, and I won't take a lot of time on that, but just a quick hit on that, how it fits in with what we're doing. I'm the project management section head here and work with both our CIP planning as well as CIP delivery teams here. So that's who I am, and maybe we'll have a kind of our utility folks. Well, let me introduce the folks from our organization. We've got a couple on the line. We've got Stacy Roberts is with us. She's on our GIS team, so she is. I've invited a few folks who are working on our initiative to listen in. She is part of the team that helps with our as-built process and just keeping our GIS system up and running. So very key to that. And then I've also got Mike Shuckman on the line. He's with our data team, and he's been working with me on our project management information system. So a couple folks from our organization that are part of our team. So welcome to you guys. Let's maybe have our utility partners do a quick introduction. I'm going to start with Jenny.
She said she was just listening.
Oh, she's just listening in.
Yeah. So, good morning. I'm kind of doing the morning shuffle over here on the West Coast, but Jenny Chaddock from Tacoma Water, and I'm a process analyst in our system and asset planning team under the engineering group.
Awesome. Thanks, Jenny, for being here. Maybe Rose next, or Deborah. I'm sorry, I keep calling last names. Deb Rose. Thank you.
That's right. Deb Rose. I'm with Metropolitan Council, and we're in very cold Minnesota right now. And I am the manager of asset management initiatives in our asset management unit.
Awesome. Glad to have you. All right. Let's see. How about Martin? We're just doing some quick introductions, Martin.
Hi. So. Good morning, everyone. My name is Martin Clark. I'm with Metro Vancouver in Vancouver, BC, and I am in charge of project management processes and guidelines and tools for our engineering and design division in Metro Vancouver.
Awesome. Welcome, Martin. Another West Coast folks, so that's great. How about Brian?
Hi guys, Brian Henderson, San Francisco PUC. It doesn't look like I have. I'm the engineering manager for the wastewater enterprise with the SFPUC, and it doesn't look like any of my other. Oh, VLAM just joined, who is with our program management team. She's actually a consultant with us, but is essentially part of the staff. Awesome. And you will see in the future. Attending this meeting, Joe Wong, who is with me in the engineering unit of the wastewater enterprise, but I don't see him on yet this morning. So Good morning, all.
Yeah, good morning. So glad to have you. And then we've got, of course, our WISE coordination and support team and experts with us as well, with Scott Haskins and Cello, and then Mike Barnett as well. And Mike Barnett really is our business process modeling subject matter expert that's available for us. And these guys really help keep us moving forward. So, and then it looks like we just had Tasha jump on. So Tasha, we're just doing quick introductions. Just tell us who who you are, what's your name, your utility you're with, and what's your job or your role.
Good morning. My name is Tasha Seibert. I am with Tacoma Water. Fairly new to the group, but I am the Assistant Division Manager for our System and Asset Planning group. And that group just basically makes the decisions around our infrastructure and assets, and when we're going to replace them, our CIP, things like that. So interested to hear this morning what the presentation is.
Okay, awesome. Well, welcome everybody. We've got a good group this morning, and thanks to the early risers for being on at 7:30. It's 9:30 here in Kansas City, and yes, Deb, it's very cold here as well. At least for us, it's about 7 degrees. So, yeah, it's good to be inside. So I'm gonna jump in. I was sharing with everybody that today's call is the sharing and interactive. So I'm glad everybody got to warm up their voices a little bit by speaking a bit, because as we get into things, I'm going to talk, but I want people, if you got a question or a comment, raise your hand as it relates to what we're doing here in Kansas City with our improvement initiative. That's the agenda today. I guess I'll steal Cello's line. He said this is like the sausage making part. So it might feel a little messy. That's okay. It's okay if we get messy here. That's the goal. I want to hear your questions and your feedback, because that'll help us with what we're trying to accomplish. So with that, I'll put some slides up on the screen, and I'll be sharing some things as it relates to what we've got going on. And we already went through and did the first couple things. Just as a visual, quick thing, what we're doing as part of this WISE program is really trying to bring value to our organizations, looking at not just our business processes. That's going to be our focus of conversation today, but I also, a huge part of what we're doing also involves workforce and people and change management for implementing improvements, as well as technology and how that fits into process improvement. So that theme definitely resonates with what we've been doing here, and I'll try and kind of weave that into the conversation as we go. But yeah, just thinking about the WISE model and kind of what we're doing with our particular CI. This is part of our CIP delivery process. Is we're trying to improve our as-built review and approval process. Specifically on our water main replacement program projects, but hopefully by making some improvements in this particular area, it'll also extend to other areas as well. And so we're using the WISE continuous improvement model, assessing system maturity, and we're really focused right now on this analyzing the as-is state or the as-is process, as well as designing a to-be process, like what do we want it to look like in the future, and then also starting to do some improvement planning and implementing improvements. So yeah, just a bigger view of this. The two red boxes on the continuous improvement process is really where we're focusing our energies at the moment in the process. So those are just the introductory slides, just to kind of give everybody the refresher on how does the WISE process work, and particularly for folks who are a little bit newer to the process. So now let's dive a little deeper into what are we doing here at KC Water. So we held a workshop last week with several of our stakeholders to continue moving forward with what we're doing. And I just want to give you kind of a summary of the outcome of that. We had a really good hour-long discussion with folks, and seemed to get some engagement, and that resonated with the people involved. First thing we did is I said, well, let's give this thing a project name. Like, what are we actually trying to accomplish? So I still need to like feed this back to the team, but just to be specific, we're calling it our water main replacement as-built review and approval process improvements. That's what we're trying to achieve. And our purpose is to document, identify, and implement process improvements. So we had a little bit of discussion with the team around that, just to kind of, like I say, get some focus on like what are we trying to do, what are we trying to accomplish. And then we had some pretty good discussion around like just like what from all the different stakeholders, what are the desired outcomes we're trying to achieve? Like what do we want this improvement effort to accomplish for us? And these are the key things that we came up with. So this, when we get into the process model, this is kind of like, this is where we're trying to get to. We really want to get to where we ensure accurate and timely information in the system of records to support better decision making. That's like the ultimate goal right there. And then some of these other things are really supporting that. We want to improve accountability and timeliness, like tracking review times for as-built reviews, and like whose court is, is the ball in, and knowing that that's something we don't have right now and that we're wanting to get to. And then also improving accountability with our contractors as a key stakeholder in the process. That was kind of the takeaway for me from the conversation is like, hey, our contractors, we need to make sure we're engaging them as a stakeholder in this process when we move towards trying to implement some improvements. We also do warranty inspections. That was kind of like a side item that kind of came out of this, that we were like, well, we also want to get better at tracking our warranty inspections and moving it into some like work order creation and execution and timeliness. So that was one of those things that's like, well, that's not exactly as built, but it's kind of related to it. So we decided to make that an outcome that we want to achieve. And then finally, to kind of fit with the WISE approach, we really want to focus on process and people first, and then leverage technology to support the process and the people that are doing the work. Which, I mean, when I say that out loud, it's like, yeah, Captain Obvious, duh. But sometimes I think I'll just say we've been guilty of, I think, getting it backwards and trying to focus on technology to solve the problem without kind of looking at the process and the people side first. So yeah, so that's that. And part of that's identifying the bottlenecks and resolving them, understanding the systems that are supporting the current process. Believe it or not, we maybe don't have a clear picture of that. And so that's part of what we're trying to do with the as-is assessment. And then as we get the 2B is starting to look at what kind of technologies or systems are needed in the future to support the process. So that's kind of all I wanted to just kind of give you all the like background context before we just dive right into the process itself. And then also introduce the team. So these are the stakeholders that are involved in this process so far. A couple of them are on the call, but on our project delivery side for our water main projects, we've got a couple of folks, Tony and Jeff, and then we've got our field inspections people or team leads representing them with Todd and Matt. And then we've got a number of folks from our asset and data management team that's led by Scott Parker. And I mentioned Stacy from our GIS team's on the call today, along with her team, Kyle and Carolyn. And then we also brought in our CMMS folks, our computerized maintenance management system folks, because of knowing that may be part of the solution is figuring out how to leverage that system to improve the process. So we've got a couple folks there. We also have eBuilder as our project management information system, and we're thinking that's going to be maybe part of the solution on the technology side. And it's not currently part of the process, but that's a person we're probably going to have to identify and bring in. And then I'm involved as really kind of the facilitator of this effort. So that's our team. So I wanted to introduce the people side. Okay. Before I dive in, does that generate any questions just right off the bat before I start diving into the weeds with folks? Okay, so hopefully that means yes. Okay, Colin, did you have a question?
Yeah, when you were developing your objectives there, how long did that? I think I've got two speakers going. How long did that whole process of developing objectives take?
Great question. So in the workshop, I already had kind of a few kind of queued up, but it took us about, I don't know, 20 minutes. So about half the meeting. We probably spent, close to half the meeting really just kind of talking about what do we really want to accomplish with this. Everybody, of course, was eager to well, let's just get into the process model and start talking about that. But I think this was a good conversation. So yeah, took us about, maybe 20 minutes to half an hour. Again, I need to feed this back to the group to make sure I heard it correctly and that everybody still agrees. But yeah, good question. Any other questions? Okay, well, I'm gonna share.
Dan, this is Scott. I just stuck something in chat.
Okay.
A couple things that came to mind that you could address if you are so inclined.
Yes, I will enjoy my coffee. So thanks, Scott. And then you've got a question about metrics. Are you identifying metrics to help evaluate your performance on this process? We do have some metrics already that are going to be part of that. And one of those is review time and response by our inspection staff back to our contractors. So that's one piece that we really wanted to improve as part of that, is to make sure our inspectors have the tools they need and understand the process, and then can meet that goal. And that goal right now that we want to hit is 14 days. So the point at which they receive an as-built drawing from the contractor to review it, mark it up, and send it back. So yeah, that's one in particular that we have identified. There's likely to be others as we get further into it. So good question. Then you said, do you believe that your good stakeholder inclusion efforts will result in buy-in and ownership? Yes. So far, that has played out. Like I said, the first meeting seemed to have pretty high level of engagement. Feedback I got was, hey, if we can make this work, if we can make this better, it's going to be a high value type of return for the stakeholders. So far so good, but still a lot of work to do. Good questions. Okay.
And Colin had his hand up also.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Nope.
Nope.
Sorry.
He's putting his hand back down. Okay. Very good. Very good. All right. So that's the kind of the background. Now I want to share with you the as is process, and the way it's kind of interesting how, you saw that model and it showed a circle and those different boxes, and things don't always happen like, clean cut in the box, like you do this and then you move on and you do this and you move on. It's kind of a blended thing, like things are kind of happening simultaneously. So this documentation of the as is process, we started out with almost like a hand sketched. It was a digital sketched flow chart from the delivery people and the inspectors on how they thought the process worked just generally, and also included a little bit of how they wanted to improve it. And then we put it into a draft business process model. Then we showed it to our GIS and data team, and Stacy, who was on the call, she and her team took that and generated a document. So our as is process is actually captured in a document. And maybe just before I hit on that, I wanted to share a few things, just as I think most folks maybe know what I'm talking about, but just to show you a visual of that. this is a screen capture of our GIS system. And in fact, this is the building I'm sitting in right now, off of 63rd here in Kansas City. And this map is showing our water mains on our GIS system. And so we have our water mains mapped in the system. And then we also have data behind that, and we have links to information. And so when I clicked on this water line right here, it's labeled D5640, it pulls up this information related to this water line. Just some basic information on material, pipe size, etc. And then ideally, each of these water lines would have a as-built number, which is that D5640. It's actually a drawing number associated with that, and then a link to a folder that contains the as-built drawing. So that's what we want. This is our system of record to be able to access these as-built drawings. So when I click on this open folder, it opens this up, and you can see, oh, there are some files in there, some image files. And when you download this TIFF image, what you get is a drawing. So this is an old drawing from who knows when. It looks pretty old. If I zoomed in, I could probably tell you what year that's from, but it shows the drawing that was used to construct this water line way back when. And hopefully it also has, some updates or markups based on what was actually constructed. So this is like the end product of what we want in the system for all of our water mains, and as we're completing water main replacement projects, as we're replacing old water mains with new ones, we want to get updated drawings in the system so that those are available and accessible for a number of folks, especially our operations people who are out in the field responding to different things. So, so that's just, again, I want to just kind of hit on that, because I'm guessing most of you have seen this kind of thing, but I didn't want to assume that, and just kind of give you guys a visual on that. So kind of back to the as-is process, our GIS team took our draft business process model and created this document and said, well, here's how we see the process going from where we sit, on the GIS side. And it's really just it's just a number of bullets and steps. There's a step for checking coordinates. They receive coordinates, and I'll go through this on the business process model when we get into it. But then they also included, it's really helpful. So these are artifacts. So these are the kind of pieces of the process. They get this. This is kind of an example of when a review is done and by GIS, and the response they give back to the contractor and the inspector on that. And then, a screen capture on checking coordinates, information they receive from the inspectors. So not only do they receive the drawings, but they get this final inspection checklist. And you can see it's a handwritten form currently that they're getting along with the drawings. And then there's this main extension form right here as well that they're getting from the field folks with information on the drawings. So this was helpful to get this from GIS to help understand like really specifics about how the process worked. And so we're using this as a guide or as a starting point for the specifics on our as is, and then from there we're building our business process model. So and I thought, I don't know if anybody's interested in like looking at this, then I think I emailed this to Cello so he could post that in the chat if you wanted to take a closer look at that. But I guess I just wanted to kind of pause right there and just say, okay, based on kind of on that part of it, any questions so far, or just Yeah, Chillo.
Yeah, I wanted to say that I posted to the chat line the link to the subfolder that contains the this slide deck that is used. The direct link to the includes the drawing and includes the Word document. Excuse me, that Dan is sharing. So let me know if that link is not working for you.
Yeah, so I guess I'll just say this artifact right here was, I guess, kind of an indication to me that the stakeholders are really interested in making this process work better, because they put kind of quite a bit of work to kind of pull this together to help us understand like what's going on. So, so that was that part of it. I guess the other question I have too, before I go into the actual process model, I mean, is there any elements to this process that are like familiar to you with your organization? You know, are there things that like, oh yeah, we used to do that and now this is what we do? Or, you know, have you gone through something similar? Anybody gone through something similar to this before we, I see Scott shaking his head, yes.
No, but most people did have as-built processes, so that shouldn't be foreign to most people.
Right.
I was just curious, Dan, in my little comment was, do you also have like work order history and other maintenance work associated with that GIS and that inventory or those records that you're updating? Could be condition, it could be, you know, when have you had failures, a whole bunch of different things could be in there. As you know, you're just dealing with the process of updating from as-built, I understand, but just as a manager of assets, I think some of the people who are on the call have that kind of focus too. Do you have an interface, or are you looking at that data as well to make sure you capture it?
Yeah, and I see Stacy responding. Yeah, we do. We do have links from the GIS to our CMMS view information. Not sure if there isn't any information here on this particular. It doesn't look like it. So, but yes, where there is information available, then yeah, we do have that link, and that is an area too we want to continue to develop to be able to provide access. And our GIS team and our asset and data team have a goal to make the GIS kind of the go-to place for people to find information. So ultimately, for like our field crews and those kinds of people who need that asset data from the CMMS, we're working towards. You know, we have some of it available through the maps, and they use that, but understanding what they need and what they use the most, we're working towards making those connections. So, Cello.
Yeah, it seems like your approach would also sort of point to the possible path of having mobile access for people in the field to this data. Is this something you're planning on, or?
I think we already have some folks. That might be something Stacy can jump in and help answer, because I'm not familiar with exact details of what our field crews are using currently, but I think that they do have that. So Stacy, you want to jump in?
Sure, I can. Hi everyone. Yes, this GIS application is fully mobile, responsive, and available on or off our network. Of course, they have to be authenticated, but it's available to anyone with credentials. The links back to the as-built and the CMMS system then are dependent on being on the network, but most of our crews are equipped with tablets and VPN connections and cell cards in the field. So yeah, most of this is operating mobilely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I see Brian, you got your hand up.
Yeah, yeah, Dan. This is a great example. We're behind you guys, and this is definitely a goal of ours. I'm more focused on the treatment side, as opposed to the linear asset side, and I'm wondering if your treatment side is just as advanced as your linear asset side here. Especially, I mean, the links to the maintenance history are of definite concern there as well.
So currently we have a platform or program, I guess. And again, I think Stacy might be able to speak more intelligently than I can about this. We've got a system set up, and it doesn't have all of our treatment plant and pumping information, but the vision is to work towards that, to be able to access asset data, O&M manuals, as-built drawings, and that kind of thing. But it's not currently tied into our existing GIS system. And I guess personally, from my experience, ultimately it would be nice to have that connected to, in some form or fashion, to our GIS system, so that you go there and then it puts you into, maybe it's another system that allows you to be able to navigate and access information at the treatment plants. So, Stacy, anything to add on that? I can't remember what our TD Pass, I think, is what it's called, and I can't remember why it's called TD Pass. I guess it's because we're all big Chiefs fans here, but.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Yeah, we're less robust on our facilities capabilities on the GIS side so far. On progress.
Well, we can make it a combined goal to move in that direction. Yeah, we're in the same boat. Our linear asset side is definitely further along as far, but you guys are still ahead of us in that regard. So I'll be looking to you for as a good example, the way for us to proceed. Maybe bring a few of our GIS folks on board here. So thank you.
Brian, I have a question. When I was working on that SSIP a few years back, there was a system, and I may not pronounce it properly. I think it was CSAMP. I think it was called CSAMP. Right.
Yes. On our collection system side, again, that is our collection system asset management. Is what CSAMP stands for. Program or plan, whatever program, I guess. Anyways, we've actually lost staff that had the key staff who were working on and developing that. As you know, Lewis has retired, who was the main driver. But we are in the process of actually recruiting folks that will continue that process. But tying what we've done on the collection side into, or trying to coordinate it with the treatment side, so we're using a single GIS system is one of our goals, one of our challenges right now.
Yeah,
and then tying that into Maximo and having the Maximo, our maintenance management system access available. There are issues there as well. So I want to be able to extract data without having to have a Maximo license for every user.
Yeah. But there were some really interesting things in that CSAMP program that Lewis was making. There were some, and there in my experience, there are also sometimes issues with taxonomy on the treatment side versus on the linear side with the pipes, because often the taxonomy, the naming convention for different elements of a pipeline are defined one way, but what sometimes happens is on the treatment side, because the actual physical surface of the plant is much smaller and it's not linear, and you could have things happening in more than 2 dimensions, and that it's a crucial point is how the naming convention for different equipment and how the hierarchy is organized, and if they may associate a whole bunch of different equipment by the, let's say, this, if they're all in the same vault, they may refer to, you know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking about. We're going through it right now. In fact, if we, I have a whole nomenclature team that's working on exactly that. I mean, we're developing standards as we speak. You're right. It is a challenge.
Yeah, this is, yeah.
I was going to say, and changing the culture is going to be a big piece of that challenge.
Yes, because sometimes the different groups, like, you know, a piece of equipment may have a different name in the hydraulic model, in the process model, in the drawing, in the you know, in the CMMS. So it can get a little bit complicated, but
absolutely. And well, and it's not only the different phases of a, let's call it a project or a process. It's also the different players involved, where we have our own internal engineering group. We have a a capital group outside of wastewater. We have another consultant-like group internal to the city, but not a consultant, different department. And then we have a whole different array of consultant teams. So developing these standards so that you can hand them to any one, stakeholder or individual and be able to understand it. I mean, we, even internal to us, who, my group, who are developing these standards, we're having a challenge setting up training programs just for ourselves to get everybody on the same page, let alone everybody outside of the organization. So yeah, we have challenges in front of us.
Yeah, I think everybody has. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, yeah, and thank you for the clarification, Dan.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, no, we're, and that was part of it too. We wanted to, when we started thinking about, it's like, well, what do we want to look at in terms of how much we want to take on in terms of this kind of as-built process? Because there's as-built for all kinds of different things. We decided, well, let's focus first on this water main replacement is need, and that's part of it too, is like figuring out where to start and like where to end. I think Jenny talked about this particularly on the process modeling side, is important. So and I'll kind of start diving into the actual process model itself. So like I said, there was a draft kind of back a napkin that was developed, and we drafted a simple business process model. Then the GIS people did this kind of narrative document with artifacts and things in it. And then we had our meeting, and we looked at the draft and started to just walk through it. And I think I see something raised here before I jump in. These business process models, it's amazing because it's like as soon as you put them up on the screen, it's like people start they engage with it. So Brian, did you have another comment or question? Or is that still from last time?
No, it's my hand still up. I got to figure out.
Okay, sorry.
Oh,
okay.
There. Okay. Yeah, no, that was from last time. Yeah,
no problem. So we flashed this up to everybody, and we started walking through it. And I'll tell you, we got to step one, and we spent probably like 15 minutes talking about step one, which for us, and let me just orient you guys a little bit. So our process, again, picking a start and an end point, we said, okay, well, we want to start the process. It starts with the project manager. It starts with getting a drawing number. Actually with just submitting a request to get a drawing number, because that drawing number is super important, as you saw, for being able to track everything through. So that's step one. And it ends, we think, and this part we haven't gotten to yet, so this may change. And actually this box is incorrect because I got feedback from folks. It ends with I'll say with the as-built getting posted on the system of record. So this is part of it. This is still a draft, needs to be updated. So this box here at the end actually is not correct. So we got some feedback on that. So that was kind of step one, is to do that. And then yeah, for folks who aren't familiar, as part of the WISE program, we evaluated different business process modeling tools, and Signavio is the one we landed on. There are others out there. This has worked pretty well for us so far, and so this is created in Signavio. It's pretty user friendly as an online tool. So one of the things we looked at, we had swim lanes for our contractor, our inspector, our GIS folks and team, our project manager, and then we didn't have this one on here, but we needed to add it because our design professional is also part of the process. So I added that swim lane based on feedback I got from the group. But like I said, we started in this section right here is about as far as we got in our first workshop. And that was probably 35, 40 minutes of conversation around the submit request for a drawing number. And so I've added some things to this since we had our workshop, but this has actually changed even in the last several months. There used to be this paper book that people tracked drawing numbers and wrote things down, and it was like really crazy. Stacy, I think, even has a picture of it that she emails out to people, that it had just handwritten stuff in it that people were using to track these drawing numbers. Well, we got away from that. Stacy and her team created a simple form. It looks simple. I'm sure it took a while to get it put together, but this is the form that we're now using to request that drawing number. So they enter the information into this form, and then it goes to our GIS team, and then they're able to actually track now that and keep track of those drawing numbers so that we don't have duplicates, so that they know that, hey, there's a as-built that's coming that has this drawing number that we should anticipate. So that little improvement right there, what seems to be a little improvement, is a pretty major step in the right direction. That was done more recently, even before we started this process. So let me go back to the model. So the GIS team provides that drawing number, and then there's kind of a split here in the model. The drawing number gets provided to the project manager, they provide it to the design professional, and then that design professional puts the number on the drawing block, or the title block on the drawing. And then those design drawings should have that number. One of the improvements we already identified right up front here was, hey, we should probably add that drawing number to our e-builder system that is tracking our projects through the life cycle of the project. So I noted that there. That's something we'll add, or we're working on. That was an improvement we already identified that said let's move forward with that now. And then the GIS team enters that project information into their tracking spreadsheet. So they've got a tracking spreadsheet to track all of those. So workshop number one, that's where we landed. And so we still have a ways to go to talk about getting coordinates and coordinate table information, the inspectors reviewing those coordinates, and then they go back to the contractor if they're not correct, and it kind of goes through until they're correct. If they are correct, then we start to get into receiving the as-built drawings and reviewing those, and then submitting those drawings, and then reviewing them by GIS, and then updating the GIS with the new infrastructure. And so what I'm anticipating, as I've kind of walked through that very quickly, is something similar as to what happened in step one. You know, this one box turned into like 5 boxes because there's a little more to it than what you realize. So I'm anticipating, as we go through and talk through this with each of the stakeholders, each of these boxes are going to multiply into 2 or 3 or 4 boxes, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's kind of in essence where we're at. So I guess let's kind of stop and just ask a question of like, what questions do you guys have? And any words of wisdom from your experiences. Scott.
Well, I asked the question of, so you have a whole change order process. Does that precede the creation of that drawing number? I mean, you have a bunch of inputs, basically, I would assume, or separate processes that are maybe earlier in your process that kind of feed into this. Although you said that you want to create this number early in the process.
Yeah, that's good comment. One, I guess the thing that came up with the group is that yes, there are change orders that happen over the course of a project, and when that happens, how does that drawing number get assigned to assets that might get added to the project, and that kind of thing. So yeah, that's another piece that we need to update to reflect, that reality. Yeah, and I guess too, from your other comment, Scott, I mean, I guess are you kind of like, are you asking like, is there maybe there's some inputs that we need to document here to kind of reflect everything that happens at this point before the drawing number? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, you're dealing in the end with an end-to-end process, and you're focusing in on this, and that's understood. But basically, what are the relationships to the other systems that you have? And as with Mike, as you're documenting this, there's a way to kind of identify what those different kinds of inputs would be and where they're from and that kind of thing. So just a comment, but I'm sure, you got to put boundaries around what you're working on, but there's a way here to, as a precursor to later deeper dives in other areas.
Yeah, no, that's great comment, and that's something I was kind of wrestling with too. Is that when we've developed some process models for project delivery through like this starts really at the design phase of a project, and when drawings are getting created, and so that's kind of when this drawing number is created. That's happening here in design. And then this stage over here is in construction. And so we have kind of the delivery processes that are happening in parallel with this. And so, yeah, I was trying to wrestle with how do I connect this very specific process to the larger project delivery process. So, that might be an action item I can circle back with Mike to maybe get some ideas on that. For now, I was thinking maybe you just put some labels down here to say this is design, and then this is construction, and maybe even kind of post-construction or close out.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions or observations? Whether it be specific to this as-built process or even just kind of like the approach we're taking for trying to implement this.
There was another question in the chat. Darren asked, do we track developer built and capital projects differently? And I'm assuming yes. Developer built like water main extensions are permitted. They're not tracked through the same system. So the short answer is yes, they are handled differently and would not conform necessarily to this workflow either.
Good question.
Dan also did the design crew. Is there a conformance of these changes with the specs and all of that kind of thing, and a design review of the changes that are made. Maybe that's outside the boundary of this particular sub process, but you know, it would seem like defining their role more broadly would, in the end, be helpful too.
Yeah, and so that, yeah, that's a good comment. So that was something that was brought up by our kind of inspections team as well as delivery team, is that as part of this implementation, one of the things that we need to do is look at our construction specifications and make sure that, I guess, what we're putting together here is consistent with those, or we need to make changes to those specifications. Because that's going to be key to particularly holding our contractors accountable to whatever requirements we have, you know, in terms of submittals and timing. But yeah, our specifications do have requirements, you know, in place currently for those, for as-built drawings. But that's kind of a piece, is to make sure though that whatever changes we're going to make here are in sync with those specifications, you know, as kind of an artifact to this. So that's a good comment.
You're also at the end of the process, I don't know, in terms of continual improvement, you know, are you assessing, you know, what potential future changes, you know, to make in the overall process as a result of the, you know, specific efforts of projects that are being made, you know, kind of lessons learned and improvement, making that part of your cycle, just like you're looking at, you know, the planning and design and construction phases of delivery, and then there's the whole, you know, how do you improve that, and is that built into your process for as-builts as well?
Yeah, it'd be a good one to bring up with the group, you know, as we move kind of the progression of the rest of the business process model, how it kind of feedback to the overall process for continuous improvement and lessons learned. That's good.
I'll add quickly, yes, that was part of the reason that we did such a large narrative of our process, because there are so many spaces for improvement, and some of these handwritten documents and handoffs. And so I think that's where the GIS team at least really wanted to highlight where we could help improve the process for the different teams by maybe automating something instead of having all these handwritten communications and checklists. And so for me, yes.
Absolutely. So yeah, and it kind of ties in. That's a good transition. So we got about 5 minutes left. So I just wanted to also leave you guys with kind of what are our next steps. So we've already got a workshop number 2. Miraculously, everyone was available 2 weeks after the last workshop. So we're getting together again next Tuesday to continue our review of the process model and continue to get that kind of nailed down. My hope is that there's also some improvement planning and implementation steps that we identify, kind of early action items that we can go ahead and move forward with as part of that conversation. And I talked with Jeff Martin. He's my boss. He's one of the stakeholders on the delivery side, and he's like, yeah, I think we're going to need probably 4 or 5 more meetings just to kind of get all the way through everything. But again, I don't want to make it just about documenting the business process model, but also figuring out how we can at least do some of the early implementation pieces to that as we're identifying them. So like I said earlier, those boxes of the steps of continuous improvement, we kind of go back and forth, or they kind of fit together. They're not necessarily totally sequential or in that way. So, and then to your point, Scott and Stacy, both, there was some discussion around we need to assess the technology side of it and really document the current systems that are part of the process. Because as Stacy said, right now there's like a number of these paper forms, and really kind of note where those fit in, and then look at maybe some improvements to creating some automated systems or digitizing some of those things so that we're not doing the paper thing anymore. And that'll be part of the technology side of it. And then, of course, navigating the change management, change of behavior kind of side of it, of getting away from paper and moving towards potentially a more automated approach. So that'll be part of our discussions as we review the process model too, and then move into, like I said, that improvement planning and implementation, of those improvements. So we made it. That's our update from KC Water, and we got a few more minutes. So any other overall questions or observations about kind of where we're headed? And
unless there are other hands up, Dan, I just wanted to, before we stop the recording and close the meeting, I wanted to let people know that yesterday we had WEF, Water and Environment Federation webcast that featured a few of our utility partners. This included DC Water, Metro Vancouver, Portland Water, and Great Lakes, and they talked about their experience with business process modeling and improvement in different areas. So I put it in the chat line, if you're interested in getting a recording of this, it's an hour session. Each utility presented about 10 minutes of what they've been doing as part of the WISE program in other, not CIP, but in other areas. So if you're interested in this, let me know. There will be also a webcast on this program focused on the technology in February, then one in March that looks at the people side, workforce and organizational culture. And then after that, in April, we'll have one on change management. So if you're interested, just let me know, just in case you missed, there are all these things coming from WEF. Sometimes it's easy to ignore them, but these ones are important. So let me know if you're interested in looking at this. And finally, we are planning a workshop at the Utility Management Conference. It would be very helpful if people can just drop me a line and say, okay, we're not, we're not traveling, we're not going to be there, or we're going to be there. That'd be really good, because it would help us plan the session. So that's just a brief thing I wanted to kind of generally say.
Good, yeah. And
Brian has his hand up.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, along the lines of the discussion today, one of the challenges that I have in front of me, we have a large treatment side project that will generate probably 4,000 drawings plus or minus flat drawings. However, it is the contractor and designer are using a BIM model that I would really love to capture, as opposed to manage 4,000 individual drawings. I'd like to be able to move in that direction for as-builting purposes, and asset management. Actually, all that data is there and available to me, but I don't have the internal resources, and I would like to move in that direction. I have basic, Revit abilities internal to my organization that I would like to expand to be able to optimize and capture this amazing model that's available to us. So anyways, I don't know if any of you guys as utility partners have tackled that issue and folded that into your asset management programs and as-builting even, specifically. But this is one of the challenges in front of me I'd like to explore with this group.
That's wonderful. Yeah, that's great. And, we have 6 different initiatives. It's, we're trying to it's a little bit ambitious, but we've also have dozens of models that have been already developed. And so if it would be helpful, we can have a session, Brian, with you and your folks to see what's the best way to plug in, what your objectives are. And then, yeah, I know I very much appreciate you already started, getting people joining and stuff like that. But some of these things would be great, especially when this pandemic is over, if it's ever over. We had really great experience with having like 4 or 5 days in-person workshops where people just really get into the nitty-gritty, either whether it's an asset management topic or CIP topic or whatever. It is a little bit of a challenge with people's calendars having, Zoom meetings from morning to night to capture the same kind of energy in a remote session. But what you mentioned is, I'm sure, a problem that others are facing, and exchanging experiences would be very, very beneficial.
Yeah, and Cello, if you're, we'd be glad to participate in that. I was going to send Brian your contact info along because we've got a large scale project going on as well that's got a BIM model associated with it. It's the first one of those we're doing in tons of drawings and information, and we're wrestling with the same thing of like figuring out how do we make sure we capture all that great stuff and improve our systems to leverage that technology. So yeah, we're in the same boat, and Cello, yeah, if you guys get a group together to talk.
Yeah, let's get our people together on this front. Sure.
Yeah. This peer-to-peer stuff is the one of the most rewarding things about the project, really, about this.
Yeah. But yeah, we have a data team meeting tomorrow. I'm going to mention that group and see what interest level there is on that. So that's great. Well, thanks everybody. I kept everybody for a few minutes after. Appreciate it. I just put up on the slide